Hello, we're back after our short break to finish this seminar with some questions and answers. So, Professor Sam, I've got a few questions for you. First question, 26278. Is it a business requirement to provide a cash flow statement monthly as opposed to a yearly cash flow statement?
Well, I can say basically this depends on the business itself. It depends on what kind of accounting system they're using. The decision lies with management, what their requirements are. If you're doing a monthly, like say you're doing a monthly cash flow statement, you'll need the same information. You'll need the balance sheet, a monthly balance sheet, compared to the previous month balance sheet instead of year to year. You'll need an income statement for that month, and you can prepare yourself a monthly cash flow statement. No problem. The only thing that it's a little bit time consuming, and it might take the extra time that you're using to prepare a monthly cash flow statement to be used, that time to be used for something else that is more urgent. Sure, you could do a monthly. That's no problem. But you can also do, like what we showed in our seminar, a yearly cash flow statement, okay? A yearly cash flow statement is required more so than a monthly cash flow statement. A yearly cash flow statement will be required for an annual report, especially if your business is a corporation and there are stockholders out there who are in need of this information to see how your business is performing, how they, being owners of that business, also want to know how their business is performing. If a monthly cash flow statement could be used mostly, I believe, for internal purposes on a monthly basis for managerial use. Various managers can use this information. If this is a requirement for some managers to have, this is a requirement that some managers want to have this information, they will direct that to the accountant, especially to these accounting manager, and request that the statement be produced on a monthly basis because of certain requirements that are needed by them. But again, for external purposes, for purposes of providing information to your stockholders, this is required only once a year because there's an annual stockholders meeting. It could be once a year, and an annual report is given out once a year. Therefore, you will have a yearly cash flow statement. So, is it a requirement? It all depends on what management wants in your business. I believe it's a requirement. It is a requirement if it's a public corporation and you need to provide this kind of information to your shareholders.
Okay. Second question, 26279. My accounting accredited bodies prefer to use the direct methods, so why should the indirect methods be considered?
Well, the accrediting accounting bodies have stated that they prefer the direct method, but they're not enforcing it. They're not enforcing that particular rule that you have to use a direct method because we want you to do this. We prefer this. The majority of companies have opted for the indirect method. The accounting bodies will allow you to use that since it is part of a way of formulating a cash statement. There is no problem. There is no problem. I would say because it's less costly, and also I personally myself, I think it's easier. That's how I feel about the indirect method. If I was an accountant for a business, I will use the indirect method, despite the fact that the accredited accounting bodies have stated that they prefer the direct method. Now, the only, like we've seen in our seminar, the only change in the method or the use is in the operating activity. Now, the investing and financial activity doesn't affect whichever method you use. So I think that's why the accredited accounting bodies have not really enforced that rule that you have to use the direct method instead of the indirect method. You can use whatever method you feel necessary in your business. There is no restriction, and the directive will come from your vice president of finance or any other higher level of accountant who will state which method you should use.
Okay. Next question, 26280. If I have a non-cash transaction, where should I record it and deal with it if no cash is involved?
Now, we've seen the importance of non-cash transactions, and all these non-cash transactions are obtained from the general journal. Okay, what I could do, what I personally have done in the past when I had to deal with basically non-cash transactions, because I have to record it. First of all these non-cash transactions have to be recorded no matter what in the general journal. And they can be disclosed. They have to be disclosed on the cash flow statement because of the full disclosure principle of accounting. This is an accounting principle that has to be followed. It's a rule, and therefore we have to disclose it. What I used to do is every month I would take the general journal, look and examine the general journal, and don't forget the general journal, we record transactions that occur seldomly. There's one or two occurrences of these type of transactions during the year. It's not something that occurs on a daily basis. I would sort of mark it down that, put a little note beside that entry and say that we'll go back to that entry and look at it at the end of the year as a non-cash transaction and fully disclose that on the cash flow statement. It's an approach that you yourself will formulate as an accountant. I have no basic rule. I follow my own common sense and experience in trying to keep track of these non-cash transactions that occur and that are recorded in the general journal entry. Try to keep track of them. Don't lose any of them, because if you're a big business, there could be a lot of general journal entries that are recorded on a monthly basis, and you could forget some item. Okay, and that is not something that you can afford to do. You have to fully disclose all of these non-cash transactions as a note below the cash flow statement, so you'll be able to, so So the owners and investors are able to know what's going on, and without you jeopardizing their confidence in you as an accountant, and without you breaking any of the accounting principle rules.
Okay. Question 26281. Should small business have cash flow statements, especially partnerships and single-owned companies?
Usually cash flow statements are for corporations, especially for public corporations that trade in the stock exchange. Now, it's to your discretion if you want to produce a cash flow statement. You have a small little business and you want to see your cash inflow and cash outflow, maybe on a monthly basis this time, because you're small, you're not going to reveal this information to anyone other than yourself. And you can prepare something like this on your own. To your benefit, it's not something that is required. As a small business, you have a bookkeeper that's on hand, and they will decide. They will provide you with the necessary information. If you request a cash flow statement, that is possible. Okay, and this is also true for partners. For partners, it's a little tricky because partnerships, you have basically, excuse me, you have two or more owners, and if you have two or more owners, these owners have to agree, okay, have to agree what is required on a monthly basis if you want a cash flow statement or not. You don't want to have any disagreements, because disagreements could lead to the breakup of a partnership, and therefore another partnership could be formed. And this is not something that you would try to avoid. And you come to a conclusion, to an agreement, if you want a cash flow statement. Again, mostly on a monthly basis and a yearly basis too. But because the cash flow statement will be used for internal purposes, you might want to use this. You might want to have a cash flow statement on a monthly basis. Again, this all depends on each individual owner. Either it's a sole proprietorship, sole ownership, or a partnership.
Okay, next question, 26282. How can I obtain the additional information that is required to produce the cash flow statement and check to see if all information has been used?
Now, again, I'm going to repeat myself a little bit on this. Additional information is those unusual transactions that occur once in a while. They don't occur readily. I'm repeating myself again, these transactions are recorded in the general journal. Okay. For example, the sale of equipment. Okay, the sale of equipment. How many times in a year will you sell equipment, fixed asset? Okay, maybe once, twice. Again, that's recorded in the general journal. It has to be used, okay, to produce a cash flow statement. You have to be able to identify it in the general journal, to be able to pick it up, okay, somehow take it out of the general journal, put a note, have a separate note, notepad or something, and say that this particular general journal entry, number so-and-so, on this particular date, okay, is a cash outflow or inflow, okay, for a particular month, and to make sure you pick it up at the year end. It can easily be picked up monthly also, because if you do monthly cash flows, that's a little more easier because there's not so many transactions involved, as opposed to a yearly cash flow where there's many transactions that you have to go through in the general journal. And how is this information used? It could be used anywhere. It could be used in investing activities. It could be used in financial activities. Items that are in the operating activities usually are not recorded in the general journal. Okay, they're recorded in other journals that occur where transactions occur on a daily basis. For example, if you have cash sales, you might have a cash sales journal to record all your cash sales transactions on a daily basis. Start from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. Fine. I mean, that's not something that we worry about, but we worry about these unusual transactions that occur once in a while that are recorded in the general journal. We have to make sure we pick up these transactions and record them as various activities, as an investing activity or financing activity in the cash flow statement. How do we do it? You as an accountant will decide how you organize yourself, in picking up this information, this vital information that is needed to produce the cash flow statement. You gain the experience over the period of years. You've developed your own ways of doing things which are not contrary to any accounting. You're not going contrary to any accounting rule or regulation. You just develop a system that is more handy for you to pick up information and use this information.
Okay, and the last question, 26283 by Mr. George Carpodinis. Sam, please, if a company has an obligation in 2 years front, how can we show this in a cash flow statement?
Ooh, nice, good question from George.
It's not actually the topic of our today's seminar. It's
That's correct.
forecasting, and it's going to be done at a later date.
Yeah, it is forecasting. It's something that will occur in the future. And the only thing I can say about that is when we do a cash flow statement, it's historical costs. Okay, these are all costs that these are all items that have occurred in the past. They have not occurred in the future. All the information in all the statements, it doesn't matter if it's a cash flow statement, an income statement, or a balance sheet. This is all historical. Okay, these events have occurred and they have been recorded. Now, something that occurs in the future, let's say, I don't know, maybe you have a lawsuit against your company and you expect the verdict is pending, it hasn't yet come in, either it will go against you or for you. If it goes against you and you expect to lose a lot of money, you can do a note stating this, okay, using the full disclosure principle. That's the rule that you have to always follow as an accountant, even for not only for historical events, but for future events as well. And that's probably the proper way of treating if you have any kind of obligation, if you know you have an obligation and it's going to cost you or reward you, it could go either way, you have to sort of fully disclose this as part of the full disclosure principle.
Well, that's all for today. Our seminar is finished.
Well, thank you very much for listening to my seminar on cash flow statements. I hope you enjoyed the seminar and it was helpful for you to basically prepare a cash flow statement. This is something that is meant for people who are not aware or who have little experience in preparing cash flow statements. It's not meant for people who have already the experience and have done cash flow statements. I hope you all the best in your accounting duties, and hope to have you here soon with our next lecture, which will be cash forecasting, cash flow forecasting. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much all for your attendance. I would like to take the opportunity to thank PASDE and George Carbozinis for broadcasting this webinar for us. For any future events and seminars, you can always visit our website, mywebinars.co.uk, and you will all be informed via email when the next seminar will be done, and it will be forecasting using cash flow statements.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, till then, I wish you all the best. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.